Hello, my support fibromyalgia friends. How are you? Hope you are doing okay this weekend and wishing everyone a low pain and relaxing weekend. I am Melissa Talwar. I am the executive director of the Support Fibromyalgia Network, and I'm also a board certified functional medicine health coach. I wanted to jump on here again, impromptu. I'm trying to make the best of it based on the circumstances. I'm going into surgery May 2nd, so things will be a little bit like impromptu when it comes to lives as we go into this. And I'm excited for May and Fibromyalgia Awareness Month starting in May, and all the activities and things to share from other advocates and our network as well. But I'm getting this question quite a bit as far as who treats fibromyalgia? Who should I go to see? So I wanted to ask this question as well from all of you out there too is, who are you currently seeing that's helping you treat your fibromyalgia? What type of doctor, what type of provider, allied professionals? And this can include a variety of professionals, right? And I think we've noticed that we need a multiple modality approach. So we might have various providers that are involved with our care. So I'd love to hear from all of you out there to see who that is. But I did want to share some of the information because I keep posting in social media and sharing because I see that there's always this referral to the rheumatologist. And yes, in the past, we've really said that if you to get diagnosed with fibromyalgia, to get treated by fibromyalgia, treat your fibromyalgia, you need to go see a rheumatologist. That has been the case for a long time. And a lot of the education and training has gone for rheumatology. And there's been some questions lately because of the neurological impact that fibromyalgia that we're seeing in research, whether neurologists are going to take over that. But I do want to share this piece of information with you just so you have a little bit more clarity because there is a lot of confusion and people are still putting out this information because there's going to be a wide variety of providers now that can help with the treatment. But here's the thing that you have to recognize, because I'm seeing this more and more, is that rheumatologists are turning away fibromyalgia patients. And I've wondered why. And this has been happening for years now. And I keep getting tweets or I keep getting sent different messages and comments. I'm also seeing this now internationally too, which is a big change for the deferral and refer of different providers from primary care. So if you're out there listening, tune in. Please leave a comment because this is good information to have on what the community is going through right now and the change that we need to make. I really feel that this is going to be an important part of why we need to launch ECHO, because we need to get at the primary care physicians and other physicians that need education on fibromyalgia. Updated education on fibromyalgia is going to be super important. So I just wanted to share from this is the American College of Rheumatology's website, and pointing out this fibromyalgia page on the American College of Rheumatology. This was kind of a new update that snuck in there a few years ago. And as people were sharing their experience, they were getting turned away from rheumatology departments if they already had an existing diagnosis of fibromyalgia. I was appalled. How could this happen? Where do patients go for treatment? Where do patients go for help? And then I went back to the American College of Rheumatology and their website update. And so read this very carefully. So it's because, fibromyalgia can cause chronic pain and fatigue similar to arthritis. Some people may advise you to see a rheumatologist. Well, we've always advised you to see a rheumatologist in the history of fibromyalgia education. You go back, the rheumatologist is the one that's supposed to treat you. So where did this change happen? But as a result, often a rheumatologist detects this disease and they'll rule out other rheumatic conditions and test for it. Again, you can still be an in-betweener in autoimmune conditions like I am. So something autoimmune is happening and the rheumatologist will run some tests. Hopefully they'll run comprehensive tests. But otherwise you'd be placed into the fibromyalgia category. And then here, for long-term care, you do not need to follow up with a rheumatologist. Your primary care physician can provide all the care and treatment of fibromyalgia that you need. So read that again. Your primary care physician can provide all the other care and treatment of fibromyalgia that you need. So this is a new development in referring to the primary care physician to do the treatment. And I've done different calls with university hospitals that were turning away fibromyalgia patients. Like if they already had an existing diagnosis of fibromyalgia, they were not accepting them as patients unless they had another diagnosis of some other rheumatic disease or autoimmune condition. And so I called them, and it goes back to research. And I hope you guys had a chance to listen to our last live with Crystal and Estella on why research is so important when it comes to fibromyalgia. I mean, even the clarity here drives me nuts because it negates any inflammation, which I'm going to get into in a second because my mind was just blown in my clinical course with Dr. Karazian. But this is a huge change for us. And we got to address this change quickly because we've really never addressed primary care physicians directly for education. If they came in to do any like CMEs in the past, it was very limited, but we never worked with organizations and medical board organizations to really direct education on fibromyalgia to primary care physicians. So this is leaving a huge gap that makes us concerned over here at the Support Fibromyalgia Network. And it's a huge reason why we're launching Project Echo and why we need to get Project Echo off the ground, because that's where we're doing medical education for providers specifically on fibromyalgia. It's super important, but it's honestly a slow go. It is a very slow go on the signups. We have a few people who signed up. I'm so happy with the providers. We need more. So if you are out there and know your provider would be interested, or if you are a provider, allied professional, pharmacist background, like please, we need your help to get this project launched because it's important. As you can see, there's going to be a major gap, and it's growing. There are rheumatologists that still will treat fibromyalgia, and we're going to be interviewing some of them hopefully through the month of May. But we've made contact with them and then sharing the information with you as well. So there are still rheumatologists who do treat fibromyalgia, which is good news. But the fact that they're starting to defer all across the country, and even I'm hearing from our international friends too, that their rheumatologists aren't seeing fibromyalgia now, is a cause for concern. Because where are you supposed to go? Now, I mean, there's a lot of professionals out there, and I'm sure you just heard my introduction of being in functional medicine. So I am trained in functional medicine. I do believe in the functional medicine principles, but I know it's not a perfect system. Paying out of pocket for care is just not going to be for everyone, and it's not a good way because it's so expensive to exist. So translating the functional medicine principles into standard of care will be important. So you could also go see a functional medicine provider. Naturopathic doctors do rally around us quite a bit for fibromyalgia, but again, some states do not accept naturopathic medicine. It also may not be covered by insurance. You might have to submit a super bill if you can. If not, you're paying out of pocket. So it's a juggling act. There's pain management doctors, DOs. I know some people get a lot of relief from some really good acupuncturists. So there's different ways to go. But again, it's so immense and so difficult to maneuver. But I do want there to be a warning sign for anyone newly diagnosed with fibromyalgia on like where they can go. And this is where we're going to have to dig into primary care education, start with those medical schools, getting anyone in internal medicine and immunology to understand the education for fibromyalgia, because we got to fill in this gap. It's really upsetting that I'm hearing more and more people talk about this, and we're not doing what we need. So we need your help launching Echo. We got to get this done. Been trying to work on this project. It got thrown off with the pandemic, and I know providers are super busy, but we can give them free continuing medical education credits because we want to democratize the fibromyalgia knowledge. So a lot of it's been held for a while from experts, or it's been gone through like the ACR has their conferences. It's limited. There's barriers to education. So we can't always be so harsh on our providers. We want to bring them into the community and be like, we understand, we're here to help you now. We'll get you the updated information that we need so you can effectively help patients wherever you're located. If you're in a rural part of the country, we want to reach them. That it's free free education credits. It does take their time though, because they'll have to meet, and it's case-based learning amongst providers. So their providers are teaching other providers through case-based learning. So it's an important component to what we're trying to launch. I'm seeing a lot of comments come in. So let me just take a minute to address that before I even move on. No, okay, so this is where it is growing too. Um, and it's not just you. It is not just you when it comes to getting an infection. So there's a post-viral infection from the COVID-19 infection. And so we've seen even from research with people who get post-COVID, long COVID, that they're getting diagnosed with fibromyalgia. So it is not just you at all. We've heard from other people that are really struggling. It does get dismissed. So this is another thing is like you go to the doctor and they need to include, or as you as a patient, please advocate and note it in your medical history that you did get infected with COVID. Just write down the timeline. This is again us doing our patients advocacy right now, for adding it to our medical history of any changes that you're going to notice, because an inflammatory response post viral infection is taking place. So don't discount that at all, because I know sometimes the providers are like, oh, it's just your fibro acting up. No, you had an infection with COVID, and we're seeing that post COVID, long COVID. I health coach for the Long COVID Center of Los Angeles, who work with a variety of patients. Some had underlying conditions before, but there's other people that were very healthy individuals that are now living with a chronic health condition, and they're having a lot of difficulties managing. So I'm not one that dismisses it, and you're not alone either. So that's a big thing too. Okay, so I find pain management is the most helpful. So the rheumatologist diagnosed you, you'll see them. Well, I'm glad you're able to see the rheumatologist occasionally, but you have been turned away for having fibromyalgia. And that's an interesting thing, like with the labels of who the pain management doctors are, what they can do for you, and seeing if there's other modalities there or other allied professionals. We really don't talk about some of the allied professionals enough, like physical therapy, being structured with physical therapy when it comes to movement, because I think sometimes when the doctor is just like, go move and exercise, you're like, no. So physical therapy can kind of be helpful, especially if you have access to different types of therapy treatments when it comes to things like water therapy. I've heard a lot of people appreciate that, especially if it's warm water and someone is actually working with you. And there's different other treatments and stuff. But what we need is also accessible care, and then someone running kind of point. Because I know as a patient, we're running point on our healthcare, but we're exhausted and we're trying to remember everything and we're staying organized. And I really do think I need to do a comprehensive video about keeping ourselves organized. But it's extremely helpful when we have a primary care physician that can help us and communicate with the other providers, especially if they're not taking us seriously, can kind of see a whole body approach and work on prevention and notes and things that we can kind of look at too, because it's hard to keep track of everything. I mean, I'm constantly in my Quest and LabCorp and looking at like over time where things are going. So I'm constantly analyzing that as well. Okay, let's keep going. I used to be treated by my roomie. Okay. So you used to. So now, like, where are you going with that? Um, I was, there's different thoughts, and I'm going to get into something shortly because I am taking a clinical course with Dr. Karazian. Please go follow him. He has YouTube videos. He's on Facebook, constantly posting videos, a podcast. He's brilliant and genius when it comes to this, and I'm so glad I'm taking his clinical course with other doctors, and we need to clone him across the country for understanding chronic pain management, neuroinflammation. His courses are fantastic. We need every doctor to like do those things because that's what we need to translate with him. So that's something with ANA positivity. I know it gets dismissed, but as a patient, definitely flag these abnormalities in your testing because it requires deeper testing as to what's going on. And there's things that get missed with antibodies working against different organ systems that can help you diagnose certain autoimmune conditions. and a lot of stuff does get missed. So I would say if you have abnormalities in your blood test, please note it. I'm not sure if your doctor is noting it, but if they don't, definitely note it as yourself somewhere to keep returning back to it to see if you see changes over time. ANAs may change over time. You may get better. You may get more like larger when it comes to that. I'm going to do a separate video. I should definitely dive into that because it gets dismissed way too often and further testing needs to happen, especially with autoimmune conditions. They wait until the very end. I mean, with some of our autoimmune friends, it takes way too long to get a final diagnosis. So I have an undiagnosed autoimmune condition. I'm going somewhere, but nothing can be officially diagnosed based on the metrics that the standard of care has developed. So I have markers for different like antibodies happening, and it could be here or there with different organ systems, especially with the thyroid and Hashimoto's. But it's not perfectly meeting their standards. So that's why they can't give me a full diagnosis. But these symptoms sure show. So that's the thing. Like, are you feeling you don't feel well? But even though they're going to tell you it's fine, which I'm just going to get into shortly too. Let me finish up the comments. I love all these comments sharing in, and the community supporting each other is super important. So in the UK, you can get diagnosed by a rheumatologist. They just referred by GP, but few doctors here. Okay. Yep. But this is where we got to learn from each other. And I just wanted to let people know too that Project Echo is an international, it's all virtual when it comes to developing echoes. I learned about it first from the EDS Society. They have a brilliant strategy. They've been doing echoes, training providers. They have one based in the United States and one based in Timing for the UK. They're also doing more with actually allied professional trainings, which I've had a chance to sit in as a health coach and connect with other allied professionals. So we can do this too for fibromyalgia. We need the support right now to get these providers to give us the time and energy that they can do, because we can get this training off the ground. So we have pain management clinic was where I got a diagnosis. Oh, they blame everything. Yes. Oh, gosh, and in a hernia, that's so painful. See, this is the dismissal. Oh, it's just your IBS. It's just your fibro acting up. But we have to look at other things to prevention. And everybody out there, just to note, please don't ignore your gallbladder. They may tell you it's IBS and everything else like that until if you get a gallbladder attack out of nowhere, it is the worst thing in the world. Woo, it is a lot of pain. So I know there's been a bias and sometimes focus with fibromyalgia and gut issues, but that does include your gallbladder. Don't forget your liver, your gallbladder, your pancreas, and those things to take a look at. Have your primary care check it out, especially if you are having digestive issues when it comes to fats or any fullness that you may feel. Get burpee. Don't ignore that gallbladder. It is super important. Oh gosh, Allison, you had emergent. This is why we got to work on preventative medicine and not dismissing and throwing things under the rug of just fibromyalgia. It's so disheartening to me, and we're going to keep advocating because I'm definitely feeling that now with the surgery I have to go to through and stuff like that. So there's a lot of people. Thank you so much for chiming in too. With I'm so glad to hear there's good primary care physicians. This is awesome. So we have again pain doc and negative later. See, this is where it fluctuates, but we just got to keep track of all of our tests and how it goes. So I put in the head of teaching program. Oh wow, this would be awesome to get more providers involved. And I mean, this is just something that keeps coming up, and keep sharing with everyone because we need this information to spread, especially with the changes that are coming. Now, I was talking about who is treating. So again, there's a wonderful list of different providers. I mean, I found some relief with naturopathic medicine. It's not necessarily always covered by insurance, which is really hard. But it's helped me with thinking about things as a whole, and it's really made a difference. But I know these are not accessible to everyone. Now, I'm gonna ramble on a little bit too because I've been taking the clinical course with Dr. Karazian, so I'm gonna add a link in there to be sure to follow him and his clinical course. But they had a case study, so we do case study rounds, and I'm in a group with a bunch of providers, and the case study sounded a lot like me with a head injury in the younger days, having a lot of digestion issues, brain cognitive issues. He's 33 years old. And I was like, oh, this sounds like exactly what I went through and everything. But my mind was completely blown. And I'm going to like throw this out there. If anyone has more information or has a clinical background, radiology background, I want to know more. So, one of the things that he mentioned when he was talking, because he was sharing about microglial and he was showing him information in the video so we get to kind of see how he works with his patients. And so the patient was going through and they were trying to understand, what happened after the head injury and accidents and how everything's involved and how some of the providers were very focused on the gut. He took a lot of gut tests. He wasn't finding a lot of relief, took a lot of supplements, digestive enzymes. Yes, he definitely had gut issues, cognitive issues. So Dr. Karazian was focusing in on brain and wanted to hear more about the MRI imaging. So we asked him if he had the MRIs. But one thing he talked about, which I didn't even know like existed, was it's called white matter hyper intensities. So white matter hyper intensities, and I'm trying to get this right because I just learned about it in the class and I was like, what? So what these are white spots in the MRI that indicate neuroinflammation in your MRI, but clinically they just overlook it. So they would say that your MRI is fine, as they do, like all our lab tests are fine, but there might be some abnormalities that we have to keep track of. But so you have white spots there, but they say everybody has neuroinflammation. And the thing that interests me was with fibromyalgia, with neuroinflammation being so prevalent, is it fine because you have symptoms? So this got me thinking. And so I'm brainstorming with all of you right now. We're brainstorming together. So if anyone has more information, I'm going to go look up more information because is this actually a marker that we didn't even consider for fibromyalgia? Is looking at the MRI, seeing the amount, I don't know, the intensities of white spots to indicate neuroinflammation with symptoms. So someone has symptoms, maybe their blood tests don't show necessarily inflammation for CRP as the protein, but if you did an MRI and they had a high density of these white spots, hyperinsensitive insensitives, like these white spots with the sign of neuroinflammation, but it gets red in their report. So I'm just curious if anyone has any information that piques my interest. I'm gonna go look it up, but I wanted to check in with all of you because we do have a lot going on with fibromyalgia. So I need to learn more about that because what the heck? And this is the same thing too we just talked about with ANAs or looking at basic blood chemistry panels. And it's hard to tell people and patients to be like, go grab a blood chemistry book if you have a chronic illness. I have a few. I went to college campuses and bought them from the medical schools so I could help myself in understanding. Or if you actually look at the documentation for Quest and LabCorp, they have some pretty comprehensive PDFs that they have for clinical use, so you can learn a lot about the actual tests. But then when you're looking at blood tests altogether, it's super important. But I would note any abnormalities because this has happened to me recently too. The GI doctor said everything looks great on your blood tests. And I have some abnormalities. There's stuff that I need to flag because I know my history. So I have a history of being anemic. So I got to keep an eye on those numbers because they were super low on my test, even though the doctor said it was fine. But I'm headed into that state. So nutritionally, I could be having some symptoms already because I know that from previous experience and previous blood chemistry history. So I'm headed to a point where I'm getting anemic. My vitamin D is a little bit lower than I would like than previous months before, where I tend to feel better. So I start flagging it. The doctor didn't seem to care. She's like, everything looks good. Everything looks good on the MRI and ultrasound. But if you actually read the report, there's stuff that I need to pay attention to. And if I didn't read the report, I wouldn't pay attention. I wouldn't even know because the doctor said everything's fine. You look good. And that's not the truth. So there's some things that I need to watch. And that's, I think, the hardest part with being a patient advocate and advocating for ourselves right now is that we're doing so much work and it almost seems like we have to be the medical doctor. So I'm so sorry, but we're going to have to catch the medical system up or find a way to maneuver through this without all becoming medical physicians ourselves. But that's what we're doing here is advocating for all of you and doing the best we can. I wish I could go to medical school very fast and be a doctor specifically for fibromyalgia. That would be awesome. But I can give you my knowledge and share what I have learned. And you definitely keep organized with your blood tests information. So if you have a patient portal system, keep an eye on it, read your reports. Don't just take everything at face value. Like everything looks good. And even for imaging, you can request imaging. I know from the imaging center, I got my MRI, I got my ultrasound, I have the report. And if you want a second opinion, go get that second opinion. And there's a lot of information, by the way, on YouTube for watching videos. There's a lot of MRI information and comparison. Not that you want to go there, but please keep your information. Keep it because, they don't always store that information they only store it for a certain length of time. You want to have that documentation. And especially if you're getting MRIs, if you're getting really severe cognitive decline and it's getting dismissed as fibromyalgia because fibro fog and all this stuff exists, I would definitely organize that information, build a file for yourself, especially looking at brain health, because injuries to the brain, we have to recognize are very important. We have to show diligence in the medical community to address that, especially if it's come from a head injury or some other injury, especially or any type of injury where it's a physical injury, especially back injury and nervous system is involved. If you've had impact, you don't want your brain to start creating those antibodies against any of the myelin sheaths or things in the brain. So accurately keep those records, keep all your records, even the endoscopies, colonoscopies, because there's some weird word choices that I'm trying to figure out. And that's why even learning from Dr. Karazian that those white spots are something to pay attention to. And I'll add this all to the description because my mind was just blown 5 minutes ago before I jumped on here. I'm like, I have to share this. What the heck? Because we've been told there's no clinical significance for fibromyalgia when it comes to blood tests, which I don't necessarily believe all the time. But what if that's an area that could be explored for testing? For like noting any differences and seeing stages of neuroinflammation because we're seeing neuroinflammation now with fibromyalgia patients. So why the heck is someone doing that research? Let me know if you're out there doing that research already. I want to talk to you. I want to meet with you because that is really intriguing. That might give us a way to just to add it in with actual symptoms because we have symptoms. We don't feel good, but they keep telling us all our blood tests and stuff are fine. Everything looks fine. So this could be something new for us. Hi, Judy. It's so good to see you. Judy, I miss you with all the advocacy we're doing. I hope you can join us. Hi, Pamela. I'm going to stop rambling. So I just got overly excited about all of that for the idea of some MRI imaging that I haven't heard anyone explore yet. So thank you everyone for tuning in. Please keep posting your comments on what doctors you see for your treatment, and that way we can better help each other. Remember that a rheumatologist may now just refer you back to a primary care physician for treatment. If you need help with treatment, we're going to be doing a lot of patient education. Especially a lot of patient education. We want to launch a whole bunch of new patient education besides medical education in the fall. So if there's stuff that you want to hear and learn about, please let us know. We'd be happy to share. Keep sharing those videos on research. Join us on May 11th for our Fibromyalgia Advocacy Rally. If you can't join our virtual meetings for Capitol Hill, we need to rally all across the internet. Tag your representatives. Hopefully, one day we can do an International Advocacy Day where everybody talks their government representation and lets them know that fibromyalgia does matter. We will not be dismissed. It is very, very real. It's a very, very real disease. So those are things we're working on. We have some friends doing some events. We are also doing a research survey on prevalence of fibromyalgia in families, with more research surveys to come. More information from research headed your way as well. And of course, keep listening, keep following. We have information from Patients Rising. There's a lot of stuff going on. So stay posted to our pages and accounts. Please like and share this information with other fibromyalgia warriors out there. We really appreciate it. And I will see you guys. Let's see if I can do a live before the surgery, but I'm hoping to recover. So I will see you guys back in full recovery mode, hopefully in May, ready to go. But I'll try to do another live before then. Hopefully I may have to record and premiere it. But thank you everyone for your support. We are going into Fibromyalgia Awareness Month. So keep sharing with the community, keep educating, advocating. Thank you again. I'm Melissa Talwar with the Support Fibromyalgia Network, and I'm also a board certified functional medicine coach. Have a wonderful rest of the weekend. I will talk to you soon. Bye.